All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Just Another Talk. Today we're gonna be looking at the story I came across actually. Um, it's is LeBron James I Promise School failing, which I think is very interesting, especially because I remember when he did this, it was a big deal. It was as it should be because it is a big deal to have your own school, be a private citizen, and create your own school. Uh, So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. This is a video by Kip Kame 11. I think that's how you say it. I hope that's how you say it. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into it.
Exactly 7 years ago, LeBron James stood at this exact spot and opened his I Promise School, arguably the greatest accomplishment in his entire career. He was lauded as a philanthropist, visionary, and a private citizen who stood up to do what the government wouldn't. It was universally celebrated as a success. But since then,
So for 3 years, not one child passed the state test in math.
Damn.
Not one.
Principal of the LeBron James I Promise School in Akron has submitted her resignation following an allegation that she slapped an 11-year-old student.
A quote, death note was found on the school grounds.
Hey,
and that
yo,
note found
what is
sometime
going on?
last week had a list of names of teachers and students who work and attend the school.
The amount of tears that I saw from teachers that work there.
what's up, y'all? I'm Kip Kame 11, and I'm here in Akron, Ohio to find out why is LeBron James's I Promise School failing?
Right.
Well, to begin, we have to go back to 2004. Fresh out of Akron, Ohio, LeBron James let all the naysayers know that he was the truth. After a successful Rookie of the Year campaign and an $87 million Nike deal, LeBron was a far cry away from where he was even just a year ago. Still possessing a strong allegiance to Akron, LeBron founded the LeBron James Family Foundation as a 19-year-old, as a way to help out struggling children like him when he was growing up. As his career accolades and profile grew, so did his organization. In 2005, LeBron hosted his first annual bike-a-thon, with kids from Akron riding along with him, joined by NBA friends Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade. He continued to provide steadily for his community and took it up a notch in 2011, where he started the I Promise Initiative, a program that gave resources to underprivileged children in Akron in order to help them succeed with school. This would go from bikes to computers to even annual trips at amusement parks.
I love being in this program. It's life-changing.
After a few years, this initiative expanded to the I Promise School as a way for kids who are at risk of flunking out and being claimed by Akron's tough environments, like LeBron almost famously was, to express themselves and be supported. It was a fantastic idea and the first of its kind. There have been schools opened by celebrities before, like Deion Sanders' Prime Prep Academy, Will Smith's New Village Academy, and Kanye's Donda Academy, all with varying levels of success. LeBron's
Damn.
school, however,
Damn, they all failed. That's such a bad look. I remember when LeBron opened this. I thought it was a great idea, somebody who, is a private citizen taking it upon themselves to actively explain how public schools are failing. So I'm gonna go ahead and do something about it. And I kind of forgot about it till I came across this video. But yeah, it's just damn. Can we win at something?
was different. It was a fully public school as opposed to private school or academy, fully integrated into the Akron public school system, and operated as such. Only that it's got over 100 of LeBron's game-worn shoes inside, and over $1 million a year in extra funding. This was history in the making.
I'm curious how much that wall's worth with all his game shoes on there. There's got to be a couple mil, because I know the resale value for jerseys, shoes, especially game worn stuff is crazy. It's a real market. People really go crazy about it.
In a regular public school, LeBron James became the vice principal.
One of the great
Not La vice principal. Of course. Let's not hate yet. We don't know what happened. We don't know. What if everything's going very well? What if, who knows? Let's go back real quick. Who knows? Maybe things will get better. Let's get back to the video.
But seriously, in America, there hasn't been a large-scale project like this. One of the reasons being, I'd be remiss not to mention, is that LeBron is, again, a private citizen attempting to revolutionize schooling for lower-income families and children. What he's doing is venturing into uncharted waters. Not only has he opened a school, he's opened up transitional housing down the block from the school for families and parents of students who might be experiencing bouts of homelessness. There are 50 families here who prior to this had struggles with finding housing.
I'm not gonna lie, that's a dope idea. Not only is that a dope idea, but it's also, you know, just overall, like, just grand. Like, I gotta give him props for that. You know, I'm not the biggest LeBron fan as far as how he's conducted himself, moving from team to team, but you know, that doesn't take away from him trying to be great and do things in the community that a lot of people probably have either never thought of or would even try. So we gotta give him props when props is due. But having housing nearby where the parents' kids can stay is really dope.
Housing. This initiative right here gives them a home. Less than 2 blocks away from the I Promise school. There's also the I Promise apartments, geared for longer-term stay. Then there's House 330, where parents of kids are employed by the facilities to give them work. I talked to some of the people there, and they had nothing but wonderful things to say about the foundation.
I was never accepted into LeBron Foundation. I don't think I would have known truly what to do in life.
There are schools out there that receive additional funding, but you're not gonna find them in America. You might find them in Japan.
This is a very nice school. What?
Or a private school. There's no place in America that's providing public school resources to a facility such as this, except for LeBron. So, what's the problem? Well, for starters, we have to address what exactly it was that made I Promise so special in the first place. Beyond the grand name and media attention, there were genuine benefits that looked to be promising for children coming from different backgrounds. The inaugural principal for the school, Brandy Davis, an Akron native and 18-year veteran of Akron Public Schools, put it plainly in national news circuits. We are going to be that groundbreaking school that will be a nationally recognized model for urban and public school excellence. We are letting people know it is about true wraparound support, true family integration, and true compassion. Wraparound support, like a hug. That's
Setting
one of
that
the
bar
core terms
high.
of the I Promise school. It's the vibe that LeBron James and his, family foundation we're looking to cultivate. It's plastered everywhere around the school, and it's even the first thing you see on the website, and also when you pull up to the school. The I Promise school was looking to create an environment where kids at school felt like they were at home, and that their teachers were family. This was accomplished in a multitude of ways. On top of the taxpayer funding that I Promise got as a part of the Akron School District, something for some reason that drew ire in the local press, there's about $1.5 million extra that the LeBron James Family Foundation provides for the I Promise school budget. Given its rather elaborate interiors and miscellaneous costs that came with new features, the foundation spent approximately $2 million in the school's inception. This extra spending goes for creating smaller class sizes for children, free bikes, hiring tutors for after-school programs, free breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snacks, as well as an on-site family resource center, which includes a food drive, GED education classes, and lawyer services for parents of the I Promise kids.
That's dope. I'm not even gonna hold you. Like, that's a grand. Not only is it a grandiose idea, but just the fact that it came up off the ground. You know, like it's actually done. And you see here some of the film, some of the footage where it looks like really nice school. And I even remember when this happened, I was like, oh damn, like, you know, LeBron's really doing something. You know, he's not just a basketball player. I'm curious what happened though.
Kids. Beyond that, there was a significantly longer school year from July to May, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., as well as 4 intervention specialists and an ESL teacher. All of this in Akron, home of one of the poorest school districts in the state. Then, of course, there are all the visits made by LeBron James, his shoes on the walls, and sometimes personalized messages and shout-outs from the king himself. To any kid, best school ever, right? The teachers thought so too.
Oh, I actually thought it was going to be amazing.
This is former I Promise school teacher Jessica Gerber, a 12-year veteran of Akron Public Schools, who started at the I Promise school in 2022. More on her later. The very first school year of the I Promise school started with much fanfare. I mean, after all, it's literally the LeBron school. Everyone and their mother wanted to know how it turned out. So much so that LeBron's media company, Spring Hill Productions, commissioned a documentary on the first year of the I Promise school. You can find it on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It's an amazing watch. In the first few minutes, you can see there's a great amount of resources that truly do provide relief for families in serious need. It instilled hope in the family of those attending the school.
LeBron James
Who's gonna help him and stuff, you know, with his problem, like with his reading everything.
But now the issue, and the very big issue at that, is actually educating the kids. The way that students from the I Promise school were selected was through a lottery consisting of second graders from the bottom 25% of achievement levels in Akron, those classified as academically at risk. The lucky 120, or technically 240 because it was 3rd and 4th grade for the first year, would get placed into the I Promise school and receive nice perks like free uniforms and more serious ones like jobs for parents. All of these children came with baggage, and a lot of it. It tended to be the reason even that they were low achieving. They weren't able to focus on class because they were acting out. Oftentimes this was because they had unstable home lives, with families not knowing how to prioritize education because they hadn't been down the path themselves and were busy worrying about other things. Take Nate, for example, a kid who was showcased on LeBron's Instagram story, who began at a kindergarten reading level. If something got too frustrating or intense for him, he would get up and walk out of the classroom. His teachers would say that he was so behind, not because he wasn't able to learn, but because he wasn't spending enough time in class. The lady who we saw from before was Nate's grandma, who lives with Nate's mom and her 7 kids. What happened to Dad?
When his friends set him up, they stabbed him, shot him, ran him over. They stabbed him with a stone.
On top of that, Nate had experienced a SWAT raid in his apartment complex after his uncle had been caught selling drugs. He says that he wasn't scared, but it's clear the experience impacted him.
Police, put your hands up!
Nate is just one of such cases, and in a classroom, one of 20.
You see, and this is one of those things that really never gets talked about, you know, and I'm not somebody who's like big on, oh, you know, the things that have come before, but the country definitely has a history of keeping people down, specifically in certain neighborhoods. And then the issue with that is the fact that you have generations of kids who've gone through this level of oppression and abuse that's passed down from generation to generation. How do we fix that? You know, you can't just put somebody in a really nice school and give them, you know, tablets and backpacks and be all set. And then when they get back home, they're in a place where it's like, it's hard to live. Like, you know, his grandma lives with his mom and there's 7 kids. Like, how big is that house, right? They're all over each other probably. Not to mention, you know, obviously the things that are going on in his background with the SWAT raid in the apartment complex and all the other stuff that he witnesses in the neighborhood also affects him. So it's sad to see that, and it's rough hearing that, because how do we fix it? But how do we also hold accountable the people that need to be held accountable for the actions that they're doing? You know, it's tough. It's a hard conversation to have, and I don't think anybody really wants to have it, regardless of who you are or what you look like.
In another class, there was a little girl who felt so unsafe that she would lock herself into one of the very fresh and new lockers at the school. After a few weeks with the kids, one teacher admitted,
you have the romantic thoughts, like, I'm going to change the world. So when you get in and you have 20 kids who struggle with school, and you have some kids who have behavior issues, you kind of be like, okay, well, this is a little harder than I thought.
Now, I'm not going to reveal all that happens for the documentary if you're looking to watch. But at the end of the day, it ends with phenomenal news that 92% of kids met or exceeded their expected state growth in both math and reading. And on average, the kids moved from the 1st percentile in English to the 9th percentile for 3rd grade and the 16th percentile for 4th grade. And in math, kids went from the 1st percentile of achievement levels to the 18th. And 4th graders went from the 2nd percentile to the 30th. In that first year, the rate of growth in the I Promise school was better than 99% of schools nationwide. This was a huge win for I Promise, and things were looking up. But there are still issues. 1. Just because kids had met or exceeded their expected level of growth doesn't mean that they were on grade level at the end of the year. It just meant that they at least advanced 1 grade level in 1 year. There were some big success stories where some advanced further, but overall, many of the kids were still below grade level, advancing to the next grade. And beyond that, there are some more serious issues brewing.
Will it be handcuffed, yes or no? This is your brain.
Jeez, the police. Not 5-0. Oh shit. I'm not gonna lie, Kip, you did a dope job making this video. This is a really good video so far. I'm genuinely curious to see what happens next.
And beyond that, there are some more serious issues brewing.
Will it be handcuffed, yes or no?
Summer, which included a 7-week summer camp for the kids, yet another perk, came and went. Despite the behavioral issues and mountain of progress that was still left to be made, the sentiment regarding the school was still tentatively hopeful. There were revisions made to the initial plan of the school, one of the last ones being that they weren't going to add first and second graders like they initially intended to. But they moved on with the next cohort of third graders, and the original fourth graders became the inaugural fifth grade class. And it seemed like the sky was the limit. Then, of course, the pandemic hit. Now see, this is where things got bad. For a lot of us in the US in regular home and school situations, the pandemic was an inconvenience, sure, and lowered work ethics overall. I was a senior in high school and I experienced the strongest dose of senioritis I think one can get, but I came out relatively unscathed. For those in younger grades, the results were much more dire. Over the last 3 decades before the pandemic, 8th graders nationwide have steadily been getting better at standardized math tests. But from 2019 to 2022, almost half of that growth in 30 years has been lost, setting 8th graders in math back literally 2 decades. Now, imagine the kids at the I Promise
In 2
school,
years.
kids like Nate with 6 other siblings, a mom that works nights, and a grandmother. He had to find a place to focus in all of that mess. Or some kids that may have their heat shut off, so they'd have to focus through the cold. A student at the University of Akron did a small study involving 10 teachers who taught at the I Promise school during the pandemic. The study found that all the teachers had significant issues getting the kids to follow instructions, and a large majority of them believed that their kids were performing worse than expected, while having overall negative behavior. There have been studies done about the disparities that were exacerbated in the pandemic between high-income and low-income families. And that was the same in the Akron School District, a lower-income district. They also suffered from what's known as learning loss during the pandemic. The amount of failing grades in math went up by 9%, and chronic absenteeism also went up drastically. Now, imagine kids in the bottom quartile of this district in a situation like this. The ones that were hard enough to keep in the classroom during regular school. There wasn't any way this was going to end well. And it was a nasty halt to the momentum that had been building up. The kids that needed food and support had to now rely on teachers and employees driving around Akron, delivering them lunches and face-to-face communication. One teacher knew the route to every single one of her students' houses, and to get to them all, which she did routinely, it would take 3 hours. A quote from her as she was helping out a family. And it really just dawned on me. School is not this family's main focus right now. They're literally surviving. Like many did, I Promise got through the worst parts of the pandemic.
And again, that just goes back to what I had said earlier, but what a lot of people don't realize, that in certain neighborhoods, you have people who their last focus is school. Their last focus is trying to learn how to be better, or trying to use YouTube, or trying to just find information and learn new things, because every day is a survival. Every minute of every hour is just basically figuring out, how am I going to make it for the next minute and hour, and also making sure that, the violence in their community isn't also taking them out, for lack of a better term. Like it's sad that it's like that, but that it is what it is. And I think you hear a lot of times people will say, oh, well, you gotta pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And I myself have been a component of saying, some people, we live in the best time, and some people just don't understand how to take advantage of it. But it's also hard to take advantage of it when you've come from a generation previous to you that didn't really focus on that. And then we talk about generational curses, where it's like, this has happened. You have 2, 3, 4, 5 generations that have come through the same area, the same situation, and all they know is survival, right? So how they gonna be able to accept the help that's out there to be given? So you gotta kind of come at it from a perspective of like, damn, some of this stuff is really sad. How can we help, while also holding people accountable that need to be held accountable for their actions, because I'm not saying don't hold people accountable and things like that, but there's also the realization of like, some people just don't have the ability to focus because you're worried about surviving. Like, you would steal food if you had no food. If you were that hungry, you would steal too. So it's not a what a person looks like thing. It's just an environment thing. How do we better the environment to then allow them to focus on other things besides just surviving?
It was hard, but they did it. But then things took a turn for the worse.
Also developing this evening, the principal of the LeBron James I Promise school in Akron has submitted her resignation following an allegation that she slapped an 11-year-old student.
Brandy Davis,
Damn.
the veteran principal, Akron born and bred, assaulted a student shortly after pandemic restrictions on the school had been lifted. The testimony she gave was that there was a situation in the bathroom and a kid had took a dump in the urinal. One of the kids told Miss Davis, who was rushing to the scene of the crime, using some pretty crass language. Miss Davis then said she went into auntie mode, treating the kid like her own nephew, and slapped him for using the S word. The kid's lip was split and bloodied. She immediately and profusely apologized to her family, but the damage had been done. From there, it's kinda downhill. Miss Davis was one of the main faces behind the entire operation. She's still listed as the principal on the I Promise School website, but due to the incidents, she was immediately placed onto paid leave in September of 2021. Davis then resigned in December of that year.
I mean, if I took a shit in the urinal, my mom would smack the shit out of me. And I don't think, see, and I grew up in a different generation where it's like, you know, my mom wouldn't have been mad if somebody hit me for doing something that stupid. She probably would have hit me on top of that. But, you know, they are saying we are family. So if we're family, she went into auntie mode. You know, it's one of them. It's a tough situation because, you know, who knows what really happened. Obviously, the kid was bleeding, had a busted lip or whatever he said, and was bleeding. So it's just like how mad could you? Oh man, yo, kids do the darndest things, man. Just your boy took a shit in the urinal.
And the school began a very turbulent period. While Davis was on paid leave, retired principal Charles Jones stepped in immediately to be the interim principal. Then after a month or so, principal of another APS school, Anthony Lane, took over for the rest of the school year. Going into the 2022-23 school year, things were looking bad. In just 1 year, the school had 3 principals. But they were able to secure a permanent principal, a University of Akron graduate and assistant principal from a nearby school district, Tawana Ham. She was a promising and eager prospect. But after 1 year, she was moved to another principal position in the district, and shortly after left Akron altogether. The district didn't give a reason, and when the local paper reached out to Ham for comment, she didn't respond. Remember Miss Gerber from before? She was at the I Promise School for the exact same amount of time that Miss Ham was. And, well...
I'll tell you a story from the first time I walked in. The very first day I had shared a classroom with an intervention specialist, and I walked in and he was like, the kid was 7th or 8th grader and he was just chewing out the teacher, and she's a young thing. And I was like, don't speak to her like that. And you know, you don't talk to me. I don't know who you think you are. You don't come in here and talk to me. Walks out, slams the door. I mean, my first 30 seconds in the classroom. And that kind of sums up how the kids act. They call it a walk and talk, and anytime they don't want to be in class, they throw a fit and they walk out of the classroom. I had an altercation with a very large 6th grade student who was trying to fight another student, and I was trying to break it up, and then he, turned on me like, get out of my face. I don't even want to repeat what he said to me. And there was at the front door of Akron, or at I Promise is an Akron cop. And I looked at him and I was like, are you going to do anything? And he just...
Imagine being able...
That's crazy. That is wild. He just... That boy just huffed and puffed and... Oh my God. Like... I don't mean to laugh, but that's wild. Hold on. Let's...
And he just slowly unfolds himself. He goes, they don't listen to me either. That's the response.
Wow. Okay.
And it was after that incident, I called my boss and I said, if you don't get me out of this school, I will quit right now.
Her experience speaks for itself.
Wow.
A lot of these problems were evident and documented in the first year of the school, but progress was still ultimately made. But when the school went into the pandemic and then lost its founding principal, the visions that the founding team came up with weren't able to be executed properly. New students came in with the same problems as the old students, and it got to the point where it seemed that the culture was dictated more by the students than by the teachers, at least according to Ms. Gerber.
The teachers try to get kids to do things. I mean, I will be like, it's not the staff. Like, there's no support there at all. There's no accountability. I mean, we've got 7th graders beating up 3rd graders on the school bus. We have kids.
Sheesh.
I mean, when I say fights daily, multiple, constantly, fights. The amount of tears that I saw from teachers that work there, everyone's put in for transfers. Like, I knew at least 5 teachers who put in for transfers because they just don't want to be there.
The teachers became overstressed and overworked, a lot of which had to do with another critical component, IEPs. If you're not familiar, it's a document, IEP standing for Individualized Education Program, in the American K-12 system, assigned to children that have a learning disability and require extra attention in the classroom. These disabilities range anywhere from dyslexia to speech impairments to autism. And these kids are often in regular classes with other students, with just a bit more attention given to them from the teachers. Nationally, there are about 15% of these types of students. In the Akron Public School District, there's about 17%. As of 2022, the I Promise School had 30% that required an IEP, double the national rate and damn near double the districts. In some classrooms, that number was as high as 45%, and one of the grade levels had 50% of children with some sort of learning disability. Damn near illegal in Ohio. And straight up illegal in Akron. It got so bad that the Akron Public School District placed a limit on kids who had gotten an IEP to I Promise, capping them at 10%. It was this environment that made I Promise so difficult for teachers. But according to Ms. Gerber, that wasn't the only issue.
Because what you see on social media and what you see, like, you know, LeBron, everything is given, nothing is earned. Or, I mean, everything is earned, nothing is given. It's actually the opposite. Everything is given, nothing is earned. I Promise isn't any different than the kids that we're getting in Akron Public Schools. They're just getting selected. Half their siblings are with us. Do you see what I mean? Like, everyone's got trauma. I don't know. Like, it's just a different environment. I've never been in an environment where there's no accountability like that.
And this was reflected in the report given 2 years ago after the 2023 school year. Keith Lichty, the liaison between the I Promise School and APS, compiled a report to present to the board concerning the I Promise students and their scores. The first report since the first year in 2019. But the news wasn't so good this time.
3 years, not one child passed the state test in math, not one.
What this board member was referring to was this chart, one of a series in Keith's presentation that told a story quite opposite from the end of the first year, from a time of promise and opportunity to one of stagnation and even failure. After the pandemic, kids from the original 3rd grade class, with kids like Nate, not a single child passed a grade level state exam in math for 3 straight years. This is even more damning when considering their testing protocols.
It takes the I Promise kids 5 weeks to finish a test. 5 minutes, I'm not kidding, and they want a break. I need a break. And they're allowed to have one. They get up and they walk out of the classroom. They need a break.
Not only were the kids not doing well, they ended up, by the 8th grade, growing less by kids who weren't selected to go to the I Promise school and went to other Akron schools despite being eligible for I Promise. Again, by the time these kids left 8th grade, the kids who were eligible for the I Promise school in Akron and didn't end up going were growing more than the I Promise kids were. In math, 42% of kids were making a year's worth of progress in school compared to just 27% of I Promise's kids in the 8th grade. And in 7th and 8th grade,
in English,
I Promise kids were still learning less than kids in other Akron schools. And when we're talking about this year's worth of progress, by the way, this is again meaning if all of the 8th graders came into school with a 5th grade math level, then only 20% of them in I Promise would end up with a 6th grade math level by the end of the year. The APS board president at the time, Derek Hall, made this point.
Those numbers could be 100% growth, grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. But if they came to us 2 years behind, they'd leave us 2 years behind. If they're not exceeding 100%, then they're not actually catching up.
Still though, we do have to keep in mind that the I Promise school is quite literally the first of its kind. LeBron James and his foundation were the first to help open up a public school. And with unplanned obstacles like a global pandemic and a principal assaulting a student, there's not that much that could have been done about it. At the end of the day, it is still a high-class facility that's helping out underprivileged kids. And when I think about the kids that I met at House 330, multiple going into fields that wouldn't have been possible without LeBron's foundation, I have hope. Mrs. Gerber, with all of the issues that she took with the school, even conceded that it could work.
That the premise of what he wanted to do was a really good idea, and I think bringing in the upper grades ruined that. If they would have kept it with 3rd and 4th grade, they would have saw big things happen.
Since that report was made in 2023, the school has made some progress, led by Principal Stephanie Davis, a fully committed Akron native. Because of the bad test scores, the I Promise school was placed under state intervention in 2 categories: Black students and students with disabilities, where both groups were testing in the bottom 5th percentile of the state. In February of 2025, the school was able to exit out of that classification, which is of course progress, but there's much more work to be done. When the inaugural class graduates high school, it's very likely that it'll show that the kids would have done just as fine, if not better, if they had went to a regular Akron school. But then again, it's not quite fair to judge I Promise on its first class. Like an I Promise representative said,
we also, in essence, opened a middle school during the time of a pandemic, and a lot of the initial work was put into the development of what did the elementary school look like and how was it built. But I don't know if everybody came back to the table and did the same level of work, given that we were in the middle of a pandemic, to build out the middle school.
With a more stable leadership culture, more experience, and more tweaks, the stats will improve. Now, will it end up that the I Promise School will be a nationally recognized model for urban and public school excellence? Probably not. But will it change lives for students and their families? From what I saw in Akron, that seemed to be the case. School or no school. The kids that I saw were empowered to see and pursue their dreams. So, again, is the I Promise School failing? You tell me.
I don't know. It's a good video though. I thought it was gonna end worse. I thought it was gonna be like, they have to close down. They're not being funded. The school's falling apart and all kinds of stuff. But that was a better video than I thought. I think something they said in that video too, which is key, is like, they should have kept it to younger grades. I think younger kids are a bit more malleable, even if they're going through things back at home, it might be a little bit easier to kind of recondition them to understanding the classroom behavior and etiquette and how to perform within the classroom. And I think it kind of leads to the point of like, well, some people can't be helped, and I would rather not think like that, but it seems like the lady said, so some of the bringing in some of the older graders, or bringing in some people that were in higher grades, like above 6, 7, and 8, was part of the issue. But I think, hey, it looks like it's a good idea, and I hope it works out. I really want, we need education, and especially in these areas. And I'm not the biggest component of school, but definitely it helps. It allows you to learn some things that you probably wouldn't have learned. And for those people who, like myself, I was never very good in school, but it definitely taught me some things that I carried with into my adulthood. Even if I didn't go to college, or even if you don't go to college, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't be a productive member of society. You can still create something. So it's an interesting video, and I shout out Kip. That's really good video. His name is Kip Came 11, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Kip Came 11. So go check him out, show him some love. And yeah, today's gonna be a little bit of shit. He dropped this video 3 weeks ago. It already has 1 million views, so that's what's up. He only has 53,000 subscribers, so that's really dope. Let's go ahead and give him a like. So yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, follow us. We go live on Kick almost every day. I gotta build a schedule for you guys so you could really get in tune to what we're doing. And I have a couple, like I said before, I got a couple things brewing. Be patient with me. I got other things going on in my life, so I'm trying to expand. I'm actually looking to add to the team as far as helping me find research and videos to do reactions to, as well as a few other things I got cooking that I'm not gonna speak to just yet, because they still we whipping work, you know what I mean? So so I appreciate the support, guys, for real. Like I said, like, share, subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I know today was a little bit of a shorter episode, but we're gonna get back on it. And don't forget, we're on Kick Live almost every day. Make sure you go follow us on Kick as well. It's Just Another Talk, one word, on Kick. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen.